As we, the American people, were preparing for a day of family, faith, and in some cases football, word reached our shores early Sunday morning that three American soldiers had been killed in a drone strike attack in Jordan. Tensions keep escalating in the Middle East, and now it's reached the point that American soldiers have been killed. And not only have they been killed, but the cries for war are getting harder, faster, and louder. Hang on, folks. We're going to get into all the details of this somber situation in just 1 minute.
My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative. Step on up to my electronic front porch and let's talk.
When I first heard the news about our American soldiers who had been killed in Jordan, my mind went back to a line from one of my favorite movies, The Hunt for Red October. In it, Fred Thompson, who was playing an admiral on an aircraft carrier, made the statement, "This business will get out of control. It will get out of control, and we'll all be lucky to live through it." And with every piece of news that's coming out of the Middle East, more and more, I'm starting to wonder if that's not what's going to happen. So let's take a look at the information that we have, try and make some sense of it all, and see if we can figure out where maybe this thing is going. We start with the Washington Post. Headline: U.S. troops killed, wounded in Jordan attack blamed on Iranian proxies. Story by Alex Horton, Telus Olorupina, Dan Lamoth, and Missy Ryan. We read the following. A militant drone strike attack killed 3 U.S. service members and injured at least 34 in Jordan on Sunday, officials said, marking the first deadly military action against U.S. troops since the war in Gaza triggered a steep rise in violence across the Middle East. President Biden blamed the assault on groups supported by Iran, generating immediate questions about when, where, and how forcefully the United States might respond. Speaking during a visit to South Carolina, Biden referenced the loss of 3 brave souls. Quote, "We had a tough day last night in the Middle East," he said before leading a moment of silence, "and we shall respond." As the tally of attacks on U.S. personnel in Iraq and Syria have surged to more than 160 since October, the Pentagon has carried out retaliatory strikes against Iranian proxies there. But to the frustration of many in Washington, those actions, along with a parallel campaign of strikes on Iranian-linked rebels in Yemen, have failed to end the violence, and the president's critics used the incident Sunday to ramp up their demands for more aggressive countermeasures. The deadly attack targeted a facility known as Tower 22 in northeast Jordan, close to where the borders of Syria, Iraq, and Jordan converge. And for the sake of everyone who's watching this video, I want to try and give you some context for where that's located. Here is a map that I found inside of a CNN article, which pretty well lays this out. The pointer is right, Tower 22, the base in question, is right here. You'll notice that it is just inside the Jordanian border, just barely over the edge in Syria and to the west of Iraq, positioned beautifully if you're going to make some moves in either of those 3 countries. But just as a side note, may I remind everyone that this is the area of the Middle East that former President Donald Trump was trying to get our troops pulled out of and brought back home? Just saying. But we continue. Going back to the article from the Washington Post, we read the following. A U.S. defense official said the one-way drone struck the base's living quarters, causing injuries that range from cuts and bruises to brain trauma. About 350 troops are stationed at the base. Jordan's government condemned the attack and said Jordanian troops had suffered no casualties. Government spokesman Muhnad Muad'Din said Jordan would continue to counter terrorism and the smuggling of drugs and weapons across the Syrian border into Jordan and will confront with firmness and determination anyone who attempts to attack the security of the kingdom. It was not immediately clear where the attack was launched from, said the official, who spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe the incident. Military commanders are working to determine that information and, crucially, why U.S. air defenses failed to intercept the drone. 8 personnel required evacuation out of Jordan for, quote, higher level care, but they are in stable condition, U.S. Central Command said in a statement Sunday night. The identities of the slain were not disclosed pending family notifications. Biden, in his statement, called them patriots in the highest sense. Charles Lister, a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute, described the incident as, quote, a game changer in the intensifying standoff between Tehran and Washington. The attack's outcome, quote, means that Biden's response is going to have to be more significant than anything he's done until now, Lister said. It forces Biden's hand. The Islamic Resistance in Iraq, an umbrella group for Iranian-linked militias, including Kataib Hezbollah and Hakarat Hezbollah al-Nujabi, claimed responsibility for the attack, according to a senior official within the organization who spoke on the condition of anonymity in line with the rules set by the group. Quote, if the U.S. keeps supporting Israel, there will be escalations, the Islamic Resistance in Iraq official said. All U.S. interests in the region are legitimate targets, and we don't care about U.S. threats to respond. Martyrdom is our prize. So, this is as bad as it could possibly get. We'll read a little bit further. Tower 22 is part of a constellation of bases that house some 2,500 U.S. troops in Iraq and another 900 in Syria. Those forces have been focused chiefly on preventing a resurgence of the Islamic State, the terrorist network that took over large swaths of both countries until a U.S.-led military campaign left the group decimated. Tower 22 functions as a support site for other U.S. outposts across Jordan's border in Syria that has taken on a different sort of mission. The isolated Antarf base, located along a key highway that connects Tehran to its ally, Damascus, has served as a platform for U.S. forces pushing back against Iran's efforts to supply partners and proxies in Syria. So, let's get into this. One of the great worries that folks like myself and many, many others have had ever since all this got started in Israel with the October 7th attack by Hamas is that the U.S., who already has troops in the region, would unfortunately let things continue to escalate, not by the hand of the U.S., so to speak, but rather situations would begin to spiral and spiral until this thing was getting out of control, and now it's reached the point where U.S. troops have been killed. Something is going to have to be done, and I shudder to think what the Biden administration could possibly do. Not that they wouldn't have the military capability to do it, but what implications are involved? Okay, we've hit targets in Yemen. Now our kids have been killed. What's next? And that's a question, frankly, that I think a lot of people are asking. Let me play you a little bit of a clip from the Duran. Alexander Macoris and Alex Cristofaro, two fantastic foreign policy analysts on YouTube, and I want to play a snippet from about 3 weeks ago. There was a report that had come out in Politico that the U.S. was preparing for a wider war in the Middle East. And Alexander Cristofaro asked his companion, Alex Macoris, well, could this be simply contained inside Yemen, or will this escalate out of control? Folks, this clip runs a little over a minute, and because Cristofaro and Macoris are so good at what they do, I want to play this clip in its entirety just to give you an idea of where everybody thinks this thing is headed. Take a listen to this.
So you launch missiles at the Houthis. The Houthis absorb the blow and then retaliate by launching more rockets at the Red Sea. And then what do you do? I mean, if you're not solving anything, if you're not solving the practical problems in the Red Sea, what do you do? What do you do, especially if the Houthis start retaliating, as they might do, against American warships and other Western warships? American warships, one gets the sense, are well protected. They've got lots of air defense missiles and air defense systems. Some of the other Western warships in the area, much less so. So what do? You probably say to yourself, well, if I stop with these attacks on the Houthis, but the Houthis continue their attacks, I'm going to look a loser. And the one thing the Biden administration cannot afford is to appear a loser, especially in an election year. And the neocons, anyway, won't accept that. They will say, well, let's forget about the Houthis. The Houthis are only one tentacle of the octopus. Let's attack the head of the octopus instead. The head of the octopus is in Iran, in Tehran. And we're going to start to see, inevitably, a drift towards a war with Iran.
Well, he said it far better than I ever possibly could. Now, I grant you, what he's talking about in that clip is in the context of the attacks on the Houthis in Yemen, but you begin to see where this thing could go, and unfortunately, it looks like it's moving there faster than anybody wants to think about. First, it's attack on the Houthis in Yemen. That's not working. The Houthis in Yemen keep attacking U.S. ships. Other groups on behalf of the Houthis, or maybe Hezbollah, or maybe some actual nation, start attacking U.S. interests, and then U.S. soldiers get killed. Well, the Biden administration, like any administration you can make an argument, Democrat or Republican, can't allow the U.S. to look weak in the face of that kind of situation. So something's got to escalate up. And there are voices inside Washington, D.C. that have been itching for a fight with Iran for years, and now they may very well have the very excuse to do it. Don't believe me? Take a look at part of a Twitter thread from U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican from South Carolina, which may I respectfully remind everybody out there who watches this video, just remember, Lindsey Graham has never seen a war yet he didn't want to get your kids killed in. But I digress. Anyway, let's go to his Twitter thread, and I think you'll begin to see what I'm talking about. I'm sending my condolences to the families of the fallen heroes in Jordan. I am also wishing a full recovery to those injured. Our forces in Jordan and Syria are there to protect the American homeland and to provide stability in a troubled region. The Biden administration can take out all the Iranian proxies they like, but it will not deter Iranian aggression. I'm calling on the Biden administration to strike targets of significance inside Iran, not only as reprisal for killing our forces, but as deterrence against future aggression. The only thing the Iranian regime understands is force. Until they pay a price for their infrastructure and their personnel, the attacks on the U.S. troops will continue. Secretary Austin's efforts to deter aggression against our forces in the region has failed miserably. I've long since lost confidence in the Biden national security team to deter Iran. If they will not change their policies now, more American service members in the region will pay a price. Hit Iran now, hit them hard. And Lindsey Graham is not the only person in Washington, D.C. that's calling for strikes against Iran, which, by the way, we have not completely determined yet who is even responsible for this. But notice the natural conclusion, hey, we got hit, let's hit somebody else. A lot of people give me and others a lot of grief saying that we are isolationist, that we don't care about what goes on in the world. I respectfully submit that's not true at all. It's rather just the opposite. It's called a doctrine of national self-interest. We don't put our military or anything else in situations where our kids could get killed unless there's a very serious national security interest involved. We've been letting our troops hang out in the Middle East for far too long. And now this is the inevitable result. Our kids are getting killed. I've got a better idea as opposed to striking Iran. How about we bring our people home? How about we don't put our kids in harm's way unless there's a really, really, really good reason to do it? War hawks like Lindsey Graham, John Cornyn, Mitch McConnell, and others inside the Biden administration are just clamoring for the idea of going to war with Iran. Well, I have a message for all of you. Be very careful what you wish for. And one more thing, by the way. If you're so hot to trot to get into a war with Iran, why don't you put on a flak jacket, a helmet, pick up a weapon, and you go over there and worry about it? But for all the rest of us who would like to make sure that our kids don't get killed and that we live in peace in the world, leave us out of it. If the Biden administration isn't careful, they're going to escalate this thing out of control. Much like that line from The Hunt for Red October, this thing will get out of control. It will get out of control and we'll be lucky to live through it. But that's what I think about it. What do you think? As we start to wrap up this video, please do me some favors as always. Number 1, if you're not a subscriber to my channel, please do so. Number 2, please hit the bell for notifications. I want to make sure you're always aware when new videos, new live streams are coming out. Number 3, please leave a comment below. I'd love to know what you think about all this. Number 4, please share the video around. And finally, give me a thumbs up. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your Front Porch Conservative, and I'll see you next time.